Financial expert Dave Ramsey doesn't even follow his own advice.
What?
Many times people keep telling me, they say, Chris, you should just take your money, put it in the stock market, just like Dave Ramsey says. Put it in your mutual funds, put in your 401ks, put in the S&P 500. That's the best place to be. Well, did you know this? Dave Ramsey made his money first and foremost in one, his company, his business is number one investment. And then two, he owns over $600 million of real estate. Then he has a little bit of cash he plays with in the stock market. That's where the bulk of his wealth is. Business, real estate, not stocks and mutual funds. But that is the advice he gives you to keep you broke. Now, I know that maybe Dave Ramsey isn't trying to make you go broke. I get that. I know he probably cares, but he probably thinks you can't handle it. He probably thinks, you know what? Americans are dumb. They're stupid. They don't know what they're doing. So I'm just going to tell them to pay off their debt, pay off their credit cards, and just stuff their money in the crappy stock market. That's what he's telling you to do. But watch this. This is how brainwashed people are getting right now. All right. So I posted this video about my friend Sam Prim, who said he borrowed money to go buy real estate. He has $25 million in mortgages, $42 million of real estate. That means if he sold off all of his real estate, given the fact he pays commissions and everything else, he'll walk with about $15 million completely free and clear. Now, he could also sell off some of his properties, pay off all his mortgages. Yes, he could do that and still keep a lot of properties free and clear, but that's not his goal. He's looking to build up his portfolio for right now. Well, of course, there's some people that say, yeah, this is right. This is the way to go. And there's other people say, that's risky. Don't do that. Let me ask you this. When you bought your house, did you put 40% down payment on your house? I doubt it. Now, some people might have, and that's fine. What is happening here is that Sam actually put 40% equity in his properties, and he only has a mortgage on 60% of it. That's an amazing position to be in. That's a very safe position where even if the markets go down, he's got an equity buffer. He could still sell it and make a profit. But of course, people freak out. They're like, oh, 25 million mortgages, forgetting he has 17 million of equity. Now, this guy, Tommy Beats, I actually liked what he said here because it's not good advice, but it's a good representation of the American mentality. Tommy Beats says, honestly, you could sell the assets and have more money than you know what to do with. Invest in the S&P 500 and you're set. Now, I get where he's coming from because you've been taught that you can throw your money in the stock market, pull out 4%, which has been debunked. That's a myth. 3% at most, 2% if you're younger, but 3% for retirement because people are living longer and inflation has been higher. He's saying, well, why don't you just cash all that money out, put in the S&P 500. Shouldn't you be set? Well, here's the math. So here's what I told at Tommy Beats here. I said, here's what you can do. You can sell off those assets. He'd have about 15 million in cash minus taxes. So let's just say that he has about $10 million he can invest. Now, if you cash out 10 million, say that's left after taxes, you put it in the S&P 500 and pull out the recommended 3%, that's only 300%, 300,000 a year, and then you're going to get taxed every year, because the stock market has no tax advantages. You wouldn't be able to just throw it in a Roth IRA. They won't let you do that, okay? So you're going to be taxed every year on that $300,000 per year. Now, granted, he's saying that's a good income. And he's not wrong. At Tommy Beats here is saying something that $300,000 a year, even if you get taxed on it, is still a pretty amazing income. But here's the difference. And this is why my clients do not want to put their money in the stock market, where they could be gambling it, earning lackluster returns, taking all this risk. Right here in this quote, it says, for example, Sam is cash flowing over $100,000 a month. That's 1.2 million per year, and he pays little to no tax on it because he's taxed as a real estate professional, which is basically another name for a real estate investor that's a business owner, meaning you get all the tax breaks you want. Many of my friends are real estate professionals. I'm not one personally because I do more passive investments, but others that have a bigger portfolio or do it more actively as real estate professionals, guess what? They get to write off a lot in their business. They get to depreciate these assets and everything else. They can roll over the equity into new properties to try to avoid those taxes so they never get taxed on those properties. But either way, the money he's getting in cash flow, he's able to write off because there's so many tax write-offs. He pays little to nothing in taxes. So here's the difference. You put in the stock market, you make $300,000 a year, you get taxed on it. He keeps his properties. Not only does he still have the equity that he gets to keep, but also he gets 1.2 million per year that he hardly gets taxed on. So quadruple the income with less taxes. And because his rents go up each year as they renew those leases, his income also goes up each and every year while still keeping those tax advantages. That's different than trying to put in the stock market and only hope to pull out 300,000 a year for the rest of your life and not increase it at all. That's a huge difference right there. Same equity, but different strategy on how you get your money. That's the big difference. That's why I love real estate and I no longer play with my money in the stock market. Even though I was a financial advisor, I was telling everybody to do the same thing that Nathan Beats said here too. I'm not doing the same thing because I learned that you can't make jack squat in the stock market and not have a lot of risk. There's just so much uncertainty in the stock market. I have no control. With rentals and other real estate strategies you can do where you don't have to own the property, you can actually become someone who invests with the investor and they deal with all the headaches. Guess what? I still get paid. And I get paid a lot more money than I would keeping the stock market where I'm not sure if the market's going to go up or down. That's the difference. Now, is there risk in real estate? Of course, it's not risk-free, but I know there's a lot less risk and I have more secured assets than I would in the stock market. And here's the real test. How do you know that it's safer to be in real estate than in the stock market? Ask your bank if they'll give you a loan to go and invest it in the stock market, especially if you put it in the S&P 500. They will say no. N-O, big fat no. In fact, when you set up a mutual fund, they even ask you, did you borrow money? Because they don't want you borrowing money because it's illegal to borrow money and throw it in mutual funds like that. Now, can you use margin to buy stocks? Yes, you can. But the thing is, banks are much more willing to give you money for real estate than they ever will for stock market. And to go back to Dave Ramsey, his best two investments, his business, then real estate. Guess what? Banks are willing to lend for business and they're willing to lend for real estate, but they will not lend you money for the stock market because banks are smarter than that. They don't take dumb advice from Dave Ramsey. They actually do the right things. That is the real secret to wealth. That's the key to success. It's not about what you might be able to make, even though you're making mediocre returns in the stock market with higher risks. I can make more money putting into real assets like real estate and make better cash flow with the same amount of money. That is why my clients hate the stock market and why they invest in real estate and can become financially free faster than everybody else following Dave Ramsey's advice. That's the key. I would love to hear your tips or what your opinion is on this. But I'm telling you, if you want to learn how to do that, go check out moneyripples.com. We can actually show you ways you can create passive income right now. Check that out.